Well, good afternoon once again, everyone. Welcome to our live. This is our live event. This is our men in training. Give me a minute while I work on perfecting this thing right here. And yes, so am I there yet? Not yet. There we are. Okay, great, good stuff. Yes, and so once again, thanks for bearing with me. I'm Craig. I am your recovery coach, and once again, this is our MIT Men in Training Mentorship Support Group. And today we're going to be discussing, talking about, well, I'm going to share some information. If somebody log on, we are a hybrid support group. And so if anybody log on, we'll have a discussion. And so this article that I'm going to be talking about today is, the title is Types of Trauma Disorders. Types of Trauma Disorder. June is the month of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And this article was brought to you by highfocuscenters.com. And might as well get right into it without any further delay. Education Center. All right. It starts off with Education Center. All right. And so it says people who experience a highly stressful event may have trouble returning to a normal state of mind afterwards. In some cases, they develop a mental health disorder related to the experience. This is known as a trauma disorder. And there are 7 different types. So I believe we're going to discuss all 7 of them, or I'm going to share some information about all 7 of them. And the first one, we're going to talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. And before I go any further, the reason I know this is a men discussion, but a lot of men have experienced some PTSD in their life and may not know that they have post-traumatic stress disorder and may have never been diagnosed. So therefore, there may be a high rate, and a lot of times, most of us as men who suffer, which I suffer from PTSD, I self-medicated. And a lot of times, what I mean by self-medicated, I mask my disorder with alcohol and drugs. And so if you are someone fit the description like I do, and if you know someone who fit the description or what I just described to you, please help them get help and get healthy by letting them know that there's help out there with the professional help. All right, seek a professional help when it comes to post-traumatic stress disorder and substance use disorder. All right, and so we're going to go over 7 different types of trauma disorder. First one I read off was post-traumatic stress disorder. Second one, acute stress disorder. Secondhand trauma, reactive attachment disorder, disinhibited social engagement disorder. Yes. So there are a lot of disorders out there that we may not be familiar with. These disorders that several of these on here that I'm reading off, I'm not familiar with it. So I'm learning, I'm getting familiar with all of these disorders, the language, the signs, the symptoms, et cetera, et cetera. All right. Adjustment disorders, other and unspecified trauma and stressor related disorders. Wow. So that's a lot. That's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to discuss. And so let's get into the meat and potato of why we're here. And let's learn and get more enlightened. All right. So first one we're going to talk about, or I'm going to read off, is post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. PTSD is one of the most well-known trauma disorders. It's estimated to affect around 8 million U.S. adults in a given year. That's a high number, 8 million adults in a given year. Individuals develop PTSD following a traumatic event. And you may say, what is a traumatic event? And so let me share some of the people that have been to war, people Vietnam, people who've been Iraq, people who have experienced some disaster, like people in Ukraine, or if you have been in an accident, if you have experienced some bullying in your life or some type of violence, those are some of the trauma disorder or post-traumatic stress disorder one have experienced or witnessed personally or just by eyewitnessing it. All right. Individuals develop PTSD following a traumatic event. While it's common for initial symptoms to begin in the days following a traumatic event, symptoms can even begin to surface months later. Symptoms can be grouped into 4 categories. Wow. Symptoms can be grouped in 4 categories. Intrusive thoughts about the event, including nightmares and flashbacks. The second one, avoidance of anything that reminds you of the trauma. The third one, behavioral changes, such as insomnia, withdrawing from loved ones, and engaging in reckless or self-destructive behaviors. And the fourth one talks about cognitive disturbance, like irritability, negative thoughts about self or others, and fear and paranoia. All right. In order to receive a PTSD diagnosis, you must experience a certain number of symptoms from each category for over 1 month. All right. And so you can learn more about the signs and symptoms and treatment for PTSD. Let's talk about complex PTSD. When individuals are exposed to repeated or prolonged trauma, such as childhood abuse, they develop a slightly different condition known as complex PTSD, better known as CPTSD. Now, even though this is a men mentoring group, however, there are men who have family members who may have children, may have people that they may come in contact with in the workforce. And so it's very important to be enlightened, because a lot of times, not only that men need to teach men, but we also need to look out for our young people as well, because they're dealing with a whole host of things in their lives. And so we need to be mindful of how we can be more effective and how we can assist when it comes to post-traumatic stress disorders. Now, I remind you, there is 7 of them that we're going to talk about or we're going to make mention about. And this one, we're talking about complex PTSD. This shares many similarities to post-traumatic stress disorder, but also has some unique symptoms, including poor emotional regulation, which manifests as outbursts of extreme emotions like rage and depression, negative view of themselves, trouble forming healthy relationships, behavioral difficulties like substance abuse, impulsivity, and self-destructive actions, detaching from self, depersonalization or reality, derealization, forgetting the trauma, losing core values and beliefs. Wow. Although some mental health professionals treat complex post-traumatic stress disorder as a distinct condition, the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorder, DSM, categorizes the symptoms under post-traumatic stress disorder. All right? And that one we just talked about or just read is complex PTSD. All right, let's go on to another one. Acute stress disorder. Right? better known as ASD. Acute stress disorder is very similar to post-traumatic stress disorder, but is shorter in duration, right? Acute stress disorder symptoms develop immediately after a traumatic event and last 3 days to 1 month, right? So I don't know. I don't know if it'd be appropriate to say that's a mild disorder. However, the article says it's a shorter in duration. If symptoms persist beyond a month, the individual has developed PTSD. So if it lasts longer than a month, acute stress disorder lasts longer than a month, then it could develop or escalate to post-traumatic stress disorder. Let's talk about another secondhand trauma. Secondhand trauma. Wow. Secondhand trauma is also known as trauma exposure. That's what it's called. Trauma exposure. If you have witnessed something that's very traumatic, you can be part of what they call or have been affected by secondhand trauma. All right? It says secondhand trauma is also known as trauma exposure response or secondary traumatic stress disorder. It results from exposure to the first-hand trauma of other people. Symptoms of secondary traumatic stress include a sense of hopelessness or helplessness, feeling like you can never do enough to help, hypervigilance, guilt, fear, anger, negativity, cynicism, chronic fatigue. Secondhand trauma can happen to anyone, but it commonly affects professionals who work with trauma victims such as counselors, social workers, first responders, doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers. And so in this field of healthcare providers, they stress is really high, is highly stressed that people who work in the healthcare field take some time out for self-care. And it's very important because as I'm learning by reading this article, secondhand trauma can affect professional people, unbeknown of them. If they don't know, it's new to me. And so I'm mindful of the fact that people who deal with a stressful environment can take on secondhand trauma. Wow. But it says it's a shorter version. It's not a long, but if it does exist over a month period of time, it can develop into something more like post-traumatic stress disorder. All right? Man, I sound like I know what I'm talking about, even though I'm reading from here, but I'm being enlightened as I'm sharing this information. So it's always good to learn new information, always good to develop and work on growth. And so because I believe that we should never get to the point where we just become stagnant or level off in our learning and our development, our maturity, our responsibility. And so, always give yourself room, allow yourself room to elevate to a higher heights. All right. Let's talk about reactive attachment disorder, known as RAD. Reactive attachment disorder occurs in children who cannot form stable attachment to their caregivers. If a child's basic needs are not met or they are frequently placed with new caregivers, they are at increased risk of developing RAD, reactive attachment disorder. Some of the symptoms may include emotional withdrawal or inhibition, lack of response to comfort from caregivers, impaired emotional response to others, limited ability to experience positive emotions, episodes of irritability, sadness, or fearfulness, often without cause. Wow. Okay. Although rare, this condition can be devastating to a child's normal development and may affect their lives into adulthood. However, treatment can help. All right, there's hope, there's treatment, there's people out there who are willing and ready to assist in that area of reactive attachment disorder. So we're going to move on and talk about another one, and that is disinhibited social engagement disorder. This is going to sound very interesting as well. Children who are unable to form healthy attachments to their caregivers may develop inhibited social engagement disorder instead of reactive attachment disorder. While these two conditions have the same roots, symptoms are completely different. Disinhibited social engagement disorder causes children to exhibit culturally inappropriate behavior. This often takes the form of familiarity with strangers. This is very important because children should, I believe, should be aware of their surroundings and that we should look out for them so that they don't wander off or drift off. So if that type of behavior you notice in a young person, they may be exhibiting. I'm not saying that they're exhibiting. However, let the professional do their job and let them do the assessment, evaluation, diagnosis, whatever they need to do to get this situation under control. All right? Children with disinhibited social engagement disorder feel no fear around strangers. Read that again. Children with disinhibited social engagement disorder, right, feel no fear around strangers and may even be comfortable getting into a car with someone they just met. This stuff need to be shared, need to be discussed in the household, and wherever there is adequate or secure environment, because children need to be nurtured, they need to be protected, and so it's our duty as men to be watchful and be mindful. All right. This disorder poses a serious threat to safety. Caregivers should seek immediate treatment for a child who displays this kind of behavior. Right? We need to, be more informed. Let's talk about the other one. Well, I don't want to dismiss this disinhibited social engagement disorder. That is something that is disturbing and alarming. All right. Let's move on to adjustment disorders. Adjustment disorders are usually temporary and triggered by stressful life events such as divorce, job loss, being diagnosed with an illness, or losing a loved one. Some people are able to cope with the stress of these situations on their own, but others need help from a doctor or mental health professional. All right? Seek help from the appropriate people if you feel the need to, and that is a doctor or a mental health professional. Symptoms of an adjustment disorder may include frequent sadness or hopelessness, crying often, withdrawing from family and friends, not enjoying your favorite activities and hobbies anymore, lack of appetite, insomnia, neglecting your responsibilities at work or at home, having trouble focusing, difficulty functioning in daily life, suicidal thought or behaviors. All right, that last one need to be really taken seriously, not lightly. And so seek the professional people, because that's what they're for. It says, if you notice some of these symptoms following a major event, talk to your primary care provider or mental health specialist. Treatment for adjustment disorders is usually temporary. However, for chronic life events like an ongoing illness or relationship problems, you might need long-term treatment. All right. And the last one we want to discuss, and that is other and unspecified trauma and stressor related disorders. Other and unspecified trauma and stressor related disorders. The article says you might have some of the symptoms of a trauma disorder, but not meet the criteria for one of the recognized types, or you might not be able to provide enough information for a specific diagnosis. In these cases, professionals often make a diagnosis of other or unspecified trauma and stressor related disorder, right? Professional people do that. This diagnosis is not any less serious than other trauma disorders. People with other or unspecified disorders have a legitimate mental health condition that is diminishing their quality of life. Treatment can help you gain control over your symptoms. Let me read that again. Treatment can help you gain control over your symptoms. All right? And so, once again, June. We are in the month of June, and June is PTSD, better known as post-traumatic stress disorder month. So we want to enlighten people. We want people to be aware. If you need help, please contact us here at Capital Recovery Center. We have coaches here in the field of recovery, and we can link you to the appropriate professional mental health people that can assist in that area. But we're only sharing this information based upon PTSD Awareness Month. And so we doing this as a MIT, Men in Training Mentorship. We're helping men get healthier. We're helping men become leaders. We're helping men learn about what can we do in our homes, what can we do in the workplace, what can we do in school, in the churches, whatever institution that need the assistance. We helping men to be more vocal, be more vigilant, and to stand up for health care. All right? And so this article is brought to you by highfocuscenters.com. highfocuscenters.com. And so until the next time, I am Craig. I am a certified peer recovery specialist, and hope you got something out of this information, out of this article, out of this, I want to say article, yeah, it's an article, offline article, and that you can share with somebody who may need this, because this is something that we all need to grasp hold of, how we can help one another become better and healthier. All right, until the next time, take care, stay healthy, stay safe. I'll see you on the next one.